It's Wednesday, February the 8th, 2017, and this is your Barbados Today evening update. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Thanks for joining us. Topping the news at this hour, 2 Christchurch young men have been sentenced to a total of 6 years in jail for a spate of burglaries committed in the same parish between last month and this month, when 24-year-old Jamaria Warren of Parish Land and 31-year-old Colin Johnson of the same address appeared before Chief Magistrate Christopher Birch today. They pleaded guilty to a total of 8 counts of burglary and theft. Warren received 4 years, while Johnson got 2 years behind bars. Officials of the Canadian-based energy firm Deltro Group Limited has finally been given permission for the construction of its $40 million solar panel manufacturing facility and 10 megawatt solar farm in Barbados, following an application just over a year ago. However, Chief Financial Officer Dean Del Mastro is anxiously awaiting the waiving of a whopping $4 million in import duties, which currently stand in the way of the commencement date of the construction of those facilities. Opting not to give details, Del Mastro says several countries have already been lining up to purchase solar panels, which he said should rake in significant foreign exchange for Barbados. And he made the comments today during a media conference at the Kendall Hill Christchurch site for the construction of the manufacturing facility. Investment into the manufacturing plant will cost approximately $20 million, and the same for the solar farm, to be built on 70 acres of land in the Waterford-St. Michael area. The plant is expected to hire about 120 people in the initial phase and could employ in excess of 200 when in full swing.
So we expect that the company, in its first year sales would, in US dollars, exceed $50 million US. And we then expect that the company will grow from that point by year 5 to reach somewhere in the neighborhood of $225 million US dollars annually.
The Barbados government defends global online tourism marketing company Airbnb against criticism that it's taking away business from the large local hotels. Addressing the launch last night of the rum and sugar season at Sunbury Plantation in St. Philip, Minister of Tourism Richard Seeley said Airbnb, which lists private residential type accommodation on its site for booking, was partly responsible for record tourism arrivals last year.
We have been hearing about the fact that a few people have showed a preference to book accommodation via online vehicles, and the product authority is looking at that. Airbnb, of course, had people here recently, and while we hear people complaining about the Airbnb taking all of their business, Airbnb themselves had the massive sum of 16,000 people that used Airbnb in 2016 in a record year. A year that saw 632,000 people coming to Barbados. So we're talking about 2% of the people using Airbnb. So I think that we have to recognize that we are dealing with people who will book their vacations using different mechanisms, and that in itself is a lesson for all of us and vindicates the government's decision to create the Barbados Tourism Product Authority.
Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Tourism Product Authority, Kerry Hall, told the audience at the launch that Barbados need to celebrate their sugar and rum, which tell the story of this country's development.
Because of the sugar and rum, Barbados became the brightest jewel in the British crown. The British Navy was headquartered here in Barbados to defend this island tooth and nail. The UNESCO World Heritage Site tells the story of trade and commerce and sugar and rum and everything else. So the fact that we actually achieved that magnanimous designation also is testimony, and we have not capitalized upon it. But hopefully now, by bringing sugar and rum center stage, we'll be able to do that, because we have a greater understanding of its importance. So, as we can see, sugar and rum played a phenomenal role in the development of Barbados, to be one of the foremost smaller developing states 300 odd years later. But to tell the story of Barbados is to tell the whole story, And I'm talking about telling the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we cannot tell the story of sugar and rum unless we tell the story of slavery. This great wealth that accumulated on this island would not be possible without the blood, sweat, and tears of free labor of our enslaved parents. And we owe it to our ancestors to tell their story in order to honor their memory. So this will also be weaved into the fabric of this entire story of sugar rum that we will be telling to you, to our nation, and to the world.
An independent senator says Barbados stands to reap continued benefits from its membership in the World Bank, particularly in the areas of healthcare funding. Speaking in the upper chamber today, Sir Trevor Carmichael said the island was now confronted with hefty medical bills which filter across the economy. He believes development funding was the way forward. But while Leader of Government Business and Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Maxine McLean lauded the benefits of the World Bank, she was more concerned that it did nothing to disadvantage Barbados.
Our concern, of course, is that we must continue to lobby institutions such as the World Bank to, on an ongoing basis, monitor their policies and programs in a way that does not disadvantage small, successful countries like Barbados, because by and large, when we do the comparisons with other developing countries, we have been, by and large, successful. We do have, of course, a number of structural challenges. We do have a number of social issues that we need to address on an ongoing basis.
In sport, the hundreds of students attending the opening of NAPSAC, or National Primary Schools Athletic Championships, on Monday at the Usain Bolt Sports Complex will be without their traditional mode of transport. The state-owned transport board said it's not in a position to take the students to the games due to challenges facing the board. This means that the schools will now have to look for alternative transportation from the private sector.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Get your paper, get your paper. Only $2.25, $2.20. Who? For what? That's Bear Stare News. I don't read about that on Barbados today since last night. That can't only can't do. $2.20. Who?
The Barbados Today, news you can trust.
We're back with the big story from the region now. Rioting in Dominica overnight has brought claims from Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit of an attempted coup. The opposition United Workers' Party has been demonstrating in the streets, calling for the Prime Minister and the government to resign over what the UWP says is an abuse of power. But after visiting businesses in the Roseau capital this morning that were vandalized and later addressing the annual general meeting of the Aid Bank, Prime Minister Skerrit put the perpetrators on notice.
I am saying to people in Dominica that nobody and no groups of individuals are going to get me out, my government out, without going through the ballots of Dominica. And I will say finally, never take my silence for witness. I am measured with my approach with life. I have to be reason, I have to get reason to the forefront as the leader of the country. But let it be known that there shall be no actions on the part of individuals in Dominica to overthrow this government. None. So if that's what is their intention, I'm sending a message to them. They better rethink their plans. But this action last night was planned, it was calculated, and it was executed.
Prime Minister Skerrit will address the nation on the rioting tonight at 8. On the global front, U.S. President Donald Trump has taken a swipe at what he called courts that are so political, as his immigration travel ban faces a major legal test. Trump told a gathering of police chiefs in Washington, D.C., that he has the right to enact his executive order temporarily suspending the U.S. refugee program and citizens from 7 majority Muslim countries.
And I listened to lawyers on both sides last night, and they were talking about things that had just nothing to do with it. I listened to a panel of judges, and I'll comment on that. I will not comment on the statements made by certainly one judge. But I have to be honest that if these judges wanted to, in my opinion, help the court in terms of respect for the court, they do what they should be doing. I mean, it's so sad. They should be, when you read something so simple and so beautifully written and so perfectly written, other than the one statement, of course, having to do with he or she. But when you read something so perfectly written and so clear to anybody, and then you have lawyers, and I watched last night in amazement, and I heard things that I couldn't believe. Things that really had nothing to do with what I just read. And I don't ever want to call a court biased, so I won't call it biased. And we haven't had a decision yet. But courts seem to be so political.
And that's news and the sport, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. Also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook. We are also on Izumi Media in bus terminals or screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you, as well as Channel 99 on Flow TV and Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic evening.